and welcome to the second episode of the Seahorse series, in which we'll make this sea pony from scratch. And he's already looking like something that resembles the seahorse, but don't worry, soon he'll be able to swim with his fin tails and his other fins, so let us get working on those. But first, let me introduce you to the Blender search bar. This is a pretty useful thing for sure. So to get it, I will go to the settings, go to preferences, make sure I'm on K-map, and now we're going to set this from play to search because we do not need the play button since we are not doing any animations. So you want to make sure you either have auto save preferences on or you manually save the preferences. For example, I can add a cube from this menu, but if I cannot remember the shortcut, I can just press space and type in, for example, cube. Here we can see the shortcut and how to get to it, and we basically get the same result. It is pretty useful. So the same way we have added the belly and the head, let us also add the tail. So this part is going to be the tail, so I'm just going to scale it in the edit mode. And now with it, I will go to the sculpt mode, make sure I enable symmetry, dynamic topology, and resolution I will actually put to like 20 because the tail is a smaller part. So what I first want to do is make it sort of a bean shape, so I will just squeeze it diagonally until I get something that resembles a bean. Of course, I want to make sure the connection between the body and the tail is pretty accurate. And after I make sure this is correct, then we'll make the whirling part of the tail. Okay, now look at it from the side. Oh, it looks too flat. Let us actually make it narrow and taper from the wider part to the tip here. And once again, do not worry, this is blocking out, so just try to make it look good to your eye and then move on with the sculpting. Okay, I want to pull this down. And now what I want to do is make sure this is in line. So the head is in line with the tail. So let me just quickly track it. What I'm going to do is actually push it a bit more backwards and rotate it. And of course you want to rename dynamic topology. And then I would tweak it just a bit more. Now I want to make the rest of the tail. And I'm going to do that with a snake hook brush. So let me first do it, but you can see we actually run into the problem because we affect the geometry we do not want to affect. But I can actually do something and use what is called a mask tool. So for example, if I use the mask brush, I can separate the geometry and sort of tell Blender, oh, I want to move only the area that I paint. Now you can see I painted black, making sure my strength is at 1. And then, for example, the area that is black cannot be affected. As you can see, nothing happens. I can only move the area that is colored white. And it also works with other brushes. Keep in mind, dynamic topology actually just subdivides the mesh, but does not affect the shape of it. You can see the area cannot be affected. And also if I zoom in, there are also some gray values that are like sort of a follow, like you have on the brush. In the middle, it will be the strongest, and on the edges, it will be a bit weaker. So to get the mask brush, I actually want to press M, which is a shortcut, and what I'm going to do is mask the tip of the tail. So make sure to look and mask from all different sides. And then, by pressing A, I can get this mask menu here. So we have some different options, such as to invert the mask. And then, I can also use the smooth mask option. So it will make it smoother and it will give it a bigger fall-off area between the masked and the unmasked part. So for example, let me show you in a way. So this is if we have a smooth mask. I will make the stroke here and you can see it nicely transitions. If I undo the smoothing, you can see now I've done the same thing, but the stroke is much more sharper. Okay, now let me zoom into the angle, grab the snake hook brush, and let us now extrude it. You can see this is much easier. And now you can see the tail is still a bit skinny, so I can even try to position it with a grab brush, which I will do a bit here. Make the transition a bit better. And look at the model overall. Sometimes zoom in and zoom out between the whole seahorse and the tail, so you want to make sure you zoom out and you will actually see some things you need to change or to move around. And of course for the tail we will use a new brush called the Inflate brush. The shortcut to get it is I, and it does what it says, so it makes the existing geometry a bit thicker. And when I look around, this is looking quite nice. And now what we want to do is actually add the fins, the ones on the side. So we're going to add little spheres. Again, I will use a cube, which I will subdivide. Make sure to apply the modifier. And then I will actually move it down where it needs to be. Then, from the front view, I will actually move it to the side. I will also scale it down, so it's not as big. And now, just try to make sure it is positioned at least somewhat correctly, and later we will add the second fin. Now make sure you have x-axis and dynamic topology on a bit more, so I will make it 35 since the fin is very small. And the changes we make are going to be almost in the detail phase. So with the snake hook brush, I want to make sure it is a bit bigger. I want to pull some sort of a mask that resembles the fin. So you can see here I pulled like 3 different fins. But from other angles it is actually not looking right, so it needs to be much more deflated and flat from the angles, and we can actually do that by using the smooth brush. So smooth brush actually averages the position of the geometry, making it smooth, round, but the side effect is that it also thins out the geometry, makes it much thinner. So in some cases where we need to make it thinner, very subtle, we can use the smooth brush. But in this case, we can also use the inflate brush. And if you wonder how, we are going to actually change the brush. You can see now, by default, what we actually do is inflate, but almost all brushes have different modes. So we have the addition and subtraction mode. What we're going to do is switch the subtract mode, and then we'll actually turn this brush into a deflate brush. But you want to also make sure you do not do it drastically like this. Do light strokes, do not like go too aggressive, and make sure to look at it from different angles. Here we can, by holding shift, we can actually access the smooth brush and quickly smooth the geometry. So whatever brush you currently have on, holding shift will access the smooth brush. And it is already starting to resemble a fin. Now I'm just holding shift, smoothing it from different angles, making sure it has some sort of a taper. And this is good enough. So with the snake hook brush, I'll just pull out the definition. So first I'll just position it and make the definition of 3 little fins we can see on the reference. So it does not have to be precise. This is why it is called blocking out. It is just a rough sketch of how our model will sort of look like. So the thing you want to get here right are basic proportions. Okay, so it has a nice curve here. Pull this down. Of course, with other brushes, we are going to make them connect much better and make it a bit more like happy looking, cartoonish, because that is what we'll in the end capture. I'll just put a bit backwards. As you can see, it stretches out to the fin we are going to do later. And do not worry about the connection. Now what I will do is I will just scale it a bit in the edit mode. That way I will not ruin the lines that I did beforehand. Of course, from the front view, we can actually position it to be a bit on the side. Just imagine him, he's flopping those fins and he needs to move with those. So they're not going to be tickling vertically on his back. Now, go to the modifiers. And what you're going to do is add a modifier called a mirror modifier. Now, you can see nothing happens. That is because we need to select the object we want to mirror. So with the pipette, I'm just going to select the seahorse. And bam! He has 2 fins now. He can finally swim. And in the next episode, we'll finish blocking out and move on to the next phase, which will be connecting all the parts and the detailing phase. So consider liking, subscribing, since I really do appreciate it. Also, check out my course on how to make a game-ready character. Links are in the description and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye!